The greatest power you possess is your ability to choose. Join Lowe's Moore as he reveals how you can begin to maximize that power by exploring yourself on the deepest levels and committing to making lasting and positive changes. Get ready to achieve breakthroughs that will lead to accelerated growth and transformation, because you are now tuned in to the Blueprint.
Why the actions contradict the lamb. I'm fellowshipping when I'm with the fam. That's more relations.
Good evening. This is Lowe's Moore, and welcome back to the Blueprint. Man, I'm really excited about this week's show. Let me say this. I like to say I was on vacation, but my wife has been on vacation. And because many of you know that I retired from the Boys and Girls Club for about a little over a year now. And so I've been relaxing somewhat. You know, it's hard to relax during the pandemic and during the social justice issues and all the things that are going on in our world. But my wife was on vacation. Well, at least the first part of the trip, we were in Charlotte, North Carolina last week, and I was doing the show from Charlotte. But it was kind of really work. Not relaxing. But this week we're in Fayetteville, North Carolina, and we're hanging out with our brothers and sisters down here in Fayetteville, North Carolina, man. And this is a more relaxed part of the trip. And so I'm excited to be here with family on both ends, in Charlotte and also in Fayetteville. Because it's been a while since we been able to get together and see family because of COVID-19 and the pandemic. So usually, again, I left my mini basketball, I guess I left it at home. And usually it's my pebble, right, that I drop in a pond, believing that the Blueprint would give a ripple effect every time I drop it. So I'm imaginary drop this pebble in the pond and expecting that we're going to get a ripple effect, that somebody's going to be impacted by the Blueprint in real time, or sometimes it can be delayed, and something that someone will say or on the show or express on the show may hit you right away, but then it may hit you a few days from now. And sometimes it'll hit you a month from now, maybe a year from now. And all of a sudden you remember what one of the guests had said on the podcast. I remember somebody saying that, or it just pop in your head, and then you apply it to your life. So I'm going to get started. I want to start out. This is my introduction. And I want to, talk to you about real quickly. I'm working on doing a relaunch of my book, from the Boys and Girls Club to the NBA, Life on the Narrow Road, the Lowe's Moore Chronicles. And so we're going to be looking forward to that. I'm going to do some little tweaks in it, because while I was working, I did the book while I was in my career, and we did maybe a few, book signings and different things like that, but never really got to promote it, never really got to get out there and talk about the book and the impact of the book. And so we want to try to do that, in a few months, and we want to do a relaunch. And so that's going to be exciting. And so I want to start this week with the book of the week. Right. And it says, you don't know what you don't know. Right. I've been trying to get it. My guest tonight wrote this book. Michael H. Scott wrote this book. And hey, let me say this about this book. Whenever I'm sure tonight he's going to give us a link. He will show us how to get his book. And for all you who have sons and daughters, and you're hoping that one day your son and daughter is going to be a student athlete, and they're going to you think they have talent enough to receive a scholarship to some Division I, Division II, or Division III school, right? Mr. Scott wrote this book specifically for you guys because, many of us don't know how to raise a student athlete. And this is his passion here. So take out your notebook. I'm sure he's going to give some nuggets tonight somewhere down in the show. He's going to give us some nuggets on the importance of academics, how to prepare academically and also athletically to position yourself to be a student athlete. Make sure, I can't wait to get the book. I was looking online trying to get it. So sooner or later, I'm going to really do, get that book and start to read it for some of the young men and young women that I mentor and support. And then next is the word of the week. Right. I think I got the word of the week up there. The word of the week is words. Words have power. The words that I speak to you are spirit and they are life. Words. We don't know how important and how powerful our words are. And my affirmation, which is next, the Pierce Harper affirmation or quote, I will read a little bit of that so that you will know how powerful words are. It says words have a special power. The power to create smiles or frowns, the power to generate laughs or tears, the power to lift up or put down, the power to motivate or demotivate, the power to teach good or evil, the power to express love or hate, the power to give or take, the power to heal or harm. Choose your words carefully. Words are powerful. Man, I know from what we have been experiencing through this pandemic and through the issues of social injustice, right? Some people have been called outside their names and different things like that, man. Words hurt, right? And please, be careful how you use your words. Use your words to inspire, right? And to motivate, right? And to bring harmony and to bring love in this day and in this time. And so that's the word. The word of the week is words. Use them wisely. And then next, I want to do a quick shout out. About the King movement. Just very quickly, I am the president of the King movement, Westchester. There's a national King movement. No matter where you are, you can be Charlotte, Tennessee. We have chapters popping up all over the United States. And if you're interested as a man to understand the importance of being a godly man, being a godly husband, and being a godly father to impact not only your home, your church, but also your community, man, check us out at kingmovement.com. Kingmovement.com, and all of the chapters are on there, and how to get involved is on there as well. And I have one more shout out. Got one more shout out that's going to be popped up there. And it says, this is Harvest Time Church. I'm a member of Harvest Time Church, and I will be doing a life group dealing with lifestyle, 7 spheres of influence. Every Tuesday evening. You do not have to be a member of the church to participate in a discussion on the 7 spheres of influence, dealing with religion and relationship, dealing with family, education, government and law, media, sports, arts and entertainment, business and finance. And we're just going to have a discussion about how important it is for us to understand that God has blessed us with gifts, right? He's blessed us with gifts that we might take into a sphere, one of these spheres of influence. And we're going to have a discussion because you may be in art, like I was, arts, sports, arts and entertainment. and you want to impact that. You just don't want to make money. You just don't want to be famous, have cars and houses, right? All that stuff is important, right? But what's most important is to bring in your sphere of influence. What I said earlier is positive words, right? And powerful words and powerful life experiences that you may be able to use your gifts to be a blessing to somebody. Be blessed, but also be a blessing. So if you're not doing anything from 7 o'clock to about 8:30 on Tuesday evenings, we will be having our second session, and it's a discussion about where you think God is leading your assignment in the sphere of influence that you're in, that you want to impact. You want to impact where you are. You want to be a blessing where you are. So again, go to HTC Church, HTchurch.com, and look up life groups and find Lifestyle 7 Spheres of Influence. And so at this time, we're going to jump right into the rest of the show. And I got a highlight for you.
Mike is doing a free camp this Saturday, August 4th. And I wanted to get together with the coaches and all the other volunteers to help out, that's going to help out at the camp. And just sit down, show his appreciation, at the same time just go over some particulars and fine tune a few things, and just make sure that we're going to dot the I's and cross the T's, because we understand in the end, it's all about the children. As I think about these type of events, because this is a free camp, and we try to maximize as many kids as we can get in there without being too crowded, but at the same time making sure we understand that the kids are going to get something out of it, the kids are going to have fun, and we can get a good number of kids in there. It's very important to have camps like this. The opportunity for someone like Mike and some of his fellow teammates and coaches to get together and put together a free event for the individual, for the kids, is awesome, because it shows that he cares. He cares, the city cares, and in the end, it's all about making sure that we give something back to that environment that created you. One of the biggest things I hope that they get out of the camp is not really necessarily saying that, okay, well, hey, if I come out here and I learn and figure out what Mike's doing, then I can make it to the NBA. No, get something out of the camp to make sure that they understand that hard work got him to that point. Them being able to apply themselves, whether or not it's in school, whether or not it's on the court, whether or not it's on the field, whatever activity, whatever talent they have, maximizing that talent, putting some hard work into that talent to make sure that they get the best out of it. So he's going to come out here, he's going to have some fun with the kids. He's going to share some learning experiences, he's going to share some life stories, and in the end, making sure they understand hard work got him to where he's at today.
Coach, this is his 7th year in the NBA. Could you imagine him traveling the route that he has to get to the point that he's at now?
Well, I never did want to grandstand, or I never did want to just overplay things or oversee things. But I told him, and I always told him, that the sky's the limit. Don't limit yourself to going to school, getting your degree, or playing at high school or playing in college. The sky's the limit. So if that's what you really and truly want to do, you want to play at the next level, then you have to work to play at the next level.
Right. And I want to introduce Michael H. Scott, right, to the show. Mike, how you doing, man?
I'm good. How about yourself, sir?
I am real good. I want to, man, let me say I got a chance to listen to some of your videos, doing my research, and I got a chance to look at some of the highlights of your son. Michael Scott is the author of the book I mentioned earlier, You Don't Know What You Don't Know, right? And also, he's the father of an NBA player, and we've had a discussion over the last week. He started a podcast, I think, was in 2017. So he's been doing this a lot longer than I have, and he's had some very powerful shows. And so I want to get started with talking about the importance of each week. I always start out. We're going to talk about your book. We're definitely going to get in your book. And I mentioned earlier, if you have, or you think you have a potential student athlete, you're a parent, and you think you have a potential student athlete in your household, right? You need to get a notebook and some paper, because later on we're going to ask Mike to get into some things that will be beneficial to parents and to a potential student athlete. But I want to start out with the importance of family, faith, and education. So talk to us a little bit about that. Talk about growing up, parents, and then ultimately becoming a parent, So talk a little bit about that.
Well, I had a very interesting childhood. I grew up not far from you. I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut.
Okay.
And I was born and raised, and had a very good life. I lived a life where we lived in 10-story buildings, and it was about 6 buildings of all the same size, and we were in our own community. And during that whole entire time, as you talk about family, that community turned out to be the biggest and best family a person can ever ask for. And I say that because over the years I've had encounters. I've reconnected with many of those folks that I met, back in the early days. And when I say early days, I'm talking about back in the 60s. So you may be with that as well. But everybody's not understanding when I say back in the 60s. Back in the 60s, it was slightly different. But during that time period, there were some things that we went through as a community that brought us together as a family. And to this day, we still have reunions in that particular community, although it doesn't exist anymore, in that community, just to reminisce on some of those days and some of those times, and some of the heartaches and some of the heartburns that we went through during that time period. And thinking about that and leading into all that, you have to have a strong faith. You have to have a strong faith. And if you don't, trust me, you will get broken fast, especially coming out of an environment like that. We had, and you probably can relate to this as well. Not many folks can, but you can relate to having riots going on, looking out the window and seeing understanding whether or not your community is going to be there the next day. Seeing cars catching on fire, seeing buildings catching on fire, seeing police come down the street. They wasn't militarized as they are now, but come down the street, with their squad cars and walking that line to make sure that the curfew is taking place on time. All that type of stuff. Just, hey, if I didn't have faith and I didn't have something to rely on and understand that there is a higher power that's going to guide me and guide my steps, then I may be in a different place today there, brother. So I appreciate that. Last but not least, education is oh so true, and we can't talk about that enough. And even when I talk to parents about education and talk to their children about education, one thing I have to remind them of is that it's not an optional thing. Most of the time when you say education to somebody, the first thing that they want to think about is sitting in school, reading a book, something that they may not enjoy or something that they may not get any pleasure out of. But that's not education. That's learning. your education is your day-to-day walk, your day-to-day life. Your day-to-day breath is part of your education. And one thing that I tell these young folks and share this with the parents as well so they can reemphasize it, you're constantly learning. And I tell them, I say, okay, you are a constant student, and you must be able to understand that you are a constant student. Your identity is you, that of a student, because there's two identities that most of the time our children lean towards. And I can talk a little bit more about that later on when we get into the book. But I just want to say this. There's two identities that they lean towards: being a student or a learner and being a social individual. That social individual think about what's going on from day to day and make all their plans that ends on Friday. And then it's time to whatever they're going to do, turn up, or whatever they're going to do to take it to another level. But that student is that person that's going to lead you and guide you and understand that, help you understand who you are when you're 45, 55, 82. And if you make it to that triple digits, hey, it all was part of that person being a student and understanding that I need to stay focused and keep a sharp eye on this individual, because this person is going to be the one that's going to lead me and guide me the rest of my life.
Wow. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I got a little picture of the family there. Yeah.
Oh, you dug that one out, brother. Hey, I appreciate
that. Yeah, because to me, the show, the Blueprint, right? For me, starts with foundational stuff, because in order to build something, right, one of the foundational pieces is a blueprint or a vision, or may it start in a dream. You got to take it out the dream state, right? You got to try to get it into the vision state. Then you got to start to write it down, right? And then you got to start to put action to it, right? So I believe faith, family, and faith and education, right, is the foundation of our success, whether it be present and future, right? So that's why I started, and I think your book is so important because you and your son and sons, right? I'm sure you raised them with that foundation, because that was the foundation of my family as well. And I think that's important as we talk about building a blueprint, talking about developing a vision, right? It has to start with foundational stuff, foundational principles, which is family, faith, education. Yeah. Wouldn't you agree?
100%. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So, so talk to me a little bit about, because I know, talk to me a little bit about, kind of growing up, high school, and furthering your education, because I know you ended up in the military, and you're in the part of the military where there are different parts of the military, but I've known some people who've been Marines before. So so talk to me a little bit about that experience.
Well, as I said, I grew up in an environment where, you just had to look at your day and hope and pray and put that faith behind it to say, hey, okay, tomorrow's going to be a better and brighter day. And getting into my high school years, at the time, I was living with my aunt, because my parents had passed away at a very young age. So I was living with my aunt at the time. So I was trying to find myself. I was trying to get my true sense of direction. And although I was involved in sports, I really wasn't involved to the point where I thought that was going to be something that could take me to the next level. I had a friend of mine who came to me one day and said something as far as, hey, man, I'm going in the Marine Corps. He said, why don't you come in with me? we can go on the buddy plan. And I said, So me being who I am, I sized him up. I said, well, if he think he can make it, I know I can make it. So I quickly gave him the eyeball test and said, hey, if he think he can make it, I think I'm going to be all right. And come to find out years later, it turned out to be exactly that, because he stayed about 3 years and I ended up staying 20. And,
wow.
But as a high school student, one thing I did see and one thing that I did really understand was something that really put me online to do this book. And I didn't realize it back then. And it wasn't even anything close in my mind as far as putting together a book. But I watched how a number of athletes that didn't have any guidance, parents didn't really know, the structure or the plan or anything. I watched these guys and I'm like, okay, these guys could be playing some serious ball somewhere. I knew that I wasn't the guy. At that time, I was just a runner. I like to run. But I knew some of them, and I thought that they really and truly should be somewhere playing ball. But after I went into the Marine Corps, and I came back home after like boot camp or whatever it was, I noticed that those same guys were still in the neighborhood. So they didn't go nowhere. So I'm like, okay, I thought you were going to school. Oh, man, nah. I ended up getting this job at, Pratt & Whitney. I ended up getting this job at Sikorsky's. I ended up getting this job at Pfizer's. I'm like, oh, okay, all right, so you didn't go to school. So I realized that if someone had guided these young men, they probably would have had an altogether different path they would have followed. And that goes back to what you were saying about the blueprint. The parents wasn't able to help them design their blueprint and put them on their path to a personal level of success. So as a result, they had to fend for themselves. And then fending for themselves, they did what they thought was best. And that turned out to be, straight into the employment world right after school, where they had other potentials and other possibilities that they could have explored.
Yeah, true. Yeah, that's important. I mean, but how was it in the military? 20 years. I mean, had to be some experience there.
Oh, it was definitely a great learning experience. If I had to do it all over again, I definitely would. Because in the first 3 years or so, I learned a valuable tool that we all should have in our toolkit, just being able to follow and understanding who you're following and understanding that pathway can be carved out for you if you decide to put the right principles in place. And then later on in my life, or the last, after the first three, I was the person that folks wanted to follow. And I made sure I set the best possible example I could. If it came down to running, I was a runner. If it came down to, leading and being the first person to lead the charge, I was right up there with everybody else. If it came down to just making sure that, hey, I was dotting every I and crossing every T, I was trying to be that guy as well. So my military life taught me a whole lot of valuable lessons. More importantly, leadership. It taught me to be able to look at a situation from a variety of perspectives, because in being in that leadership position, I had to be able to listen to what somebody over here to the left was saying, somebody over to the right was saying, take all that, bring all that information together, and then figure out what direction we're going to take moving forward. And so that helped me a whole lot. I had an opportunity to do some teaching during the time period that I was in there. I taught at Marine Corps University for a number of years. I taught as a Marine Corps drill instructor A couple times I was a platoon sergeant with the Officer Candidate School. So I had a chance to share what I have learned and was still learning, with others that was coming up, that next generation of Marines that was coming up.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I know a few guys that was in the Marines, man. And they turned out to be very disciplined individuals. And, some of them came back, they struggled a little bit, once they came back, man, because you learn a set of principles and a lifestyle, right? That's different than, coming back home, and they were totally different. And it took a little while for them to.
Yeah, but at the same time, and I think I fault the Marine Corps for that, and I just been having a firsthand experience. They don't allow them enough time for that transition to release that lifestyle or to make an adjustment to that lifestyle, because they're now coming back to their hometowns or relocating to another place in the country, but they don't give them that time or afford them that opportunity to do a total readjustment. They'll work you all the way up until your very last day when you got your bags packed and you ready to throw your last set of boots in the car and drive on down the road. You just got off work, instead of giving you that transition time, which is much needed.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I could see that. I could see, from a number of individuals. My brother, who I'm down here with, I think he's made, the adjustment, coming out of the armed forces, for a number of years, over 25 years, and making that adjustment back to family and family life, and just getting back into things, so I can see how important that is. First of all, let me tell you something, man. It took me a little adjustment, because when you play professionally, and I had the opportunity to play professional basketball, from high school to college, and being on that, what I call like that level, where everybody's kind of applauding and clapping, and you live in this like kind of superstar life from high school to college, and then now you're an NBA player, right? And then it's over, right? Some of us don't quite make the adjustment. We start living in that world for the rest of our lives, and thinking that we're still in the NBA. Right. And we still acting like we're in the NBA, but we ain't getting an NBA paycheck. I mean, so yeah, we have to learn how to make those those adjustments at the right time. And and the other thing you said that was important is having people to help you make those adjustments. Having
Yes.
Having coaches and mentors and people that will be there to say, look, hey, this is how it's going to be when it ends, or start to make a blueprint or a plan that one day this is going to end, right? And how am I going to adjust to it? Going back to family, right? I think you had sons, right?
Yes, I have two sons and a daughter.
Two sons and a daughter, okay. And so, mom's with you guys?
For the most part, no. I played the single role part. My daughter was from my previous wife, but my two sons, they actually, my youngest son and my daughter had the same mother, and then my oldest son Mike had a different mom. But I raised him from about the age of 3 all the way up until he went off to go to college.
Right. So talk to me about that, just being a single dad, man, being a father and being responsible for, your children, man, and helping them to become the men and women that they have become.
Well, that was doing probably the interesting part of my life because I was also full-time military at the time. When Mike was born, I was just breaking that 10-year mark of my 20-year career. And I was like, okay, I don't know how I'm going to do this, but hopefully, goes back to that faith again. You got to have that faith, and something just stayed with me, and something just kept guiding me and making sure that everything worked out for me where I didn't have to be away from him for a long period of time. I guess that's how I ended up on Marine Corps Base Quantico for a number of years, teaching at the Marine Corps University, because of the fact that, hey, somebody was in my corner. There was a higher power that was in my corner that kept me on track and kept me focused. But even raising, children, and then my youngest son, he lived with me his entire high school years, and it was just he and I at the time. And, again, it's all about setting the example. I could have been the guy that was still hanging out in the street. Like I said, when Mike was born, I wasn't even 30 years old. But I realized at that time, okay, I have a son now. I have a responsibility. So with that being said, I have to focus on ensuring that he has everything to his advantage. It's not about me anymore. It's about him. So I made sure that that's what was going on in my life, as far as the hanging out and all the other things I had the possibility of doing and could have done. No. Got to put that on the back burner. And, I try to tell young dads that, today, hey, got to slow it down now, brother, because you have a responsibility that did not ask to be here. And in doing so, you'll realize later on down the line that, hey, it was a win-win situation. You won, your child won, and the community at large won. With Mike being my oldest, oftentimes I took him out during the time that I was in the Marine Corps. If I was out running, he came out and jogged along with me. And that's when I started to really believe that he has some potential. Other than, as you see him right there in the Sixers uniform, he was also a very good track runner. He ran the 400 and the 800, 400, 800, and long jump. And he just tickled me when he did it because he would never say he won the race. He would always say, Dad, I was in front. Dad, I was in front. I said, what you mean you was in front? I'm thinking, okay, you at the, like the teacher put you at the front of the class line and you're excited about being in that position. Dad, I was in front, not to say, Dad, I won and, you walk around with his chest all raised up. No, he was just excited about being in the front. I said, well, son, continue to put yourself in the front and everything will work out for you. And I put that same principle, added that same principle to the life of the other two as well, which is now one is in her 7th year in the military and the youngest one is working with Mike.
Okay, very nice. We're going to definitely talk about Mike a little bit later, but had a couple of questions. Remember, this is interactive, so if you have some questions, you can pop them up on the screen. I know my wife has a couple of questions. I mean, you probably see them on the screen there. And one of the other, she made a statement before because we know. You said you was from New Haven, Connecticut, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So she was asking me about
Super John.
Yes, I played against Sly Williams and Super John. I mean, both in the NBA and both in the CBA, and also Wes Matthews. Know Wes Matthews?
Yes, the daddy.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, Wes graduated about the same time I graduated.
Okay, so I talk to Wes all the time. He's always. I just retired from the Boys and Girls Club last year, and Wes was at every one. I mean, every one of my golf outings. Every one of them.
Okay.
So, yeah, and so my wife had a couple of questions for you. He said, "What do you think is one of the hardest things to teach parents about their kids? That's the first question.
Well, one of the hardest things I would say to teach parents about their kids is to be honest about who they really are.
Hmm.
You know, sad to say, we got to humble ourselves and realize that every little child, just because he makes that layup at the age of 3, doesn't mean he's on his way to the league. We have to really and truly understand that there's a whole lot of development that has to go into place. And so one of the hardest things I say is to teach parents is to, really be able to be honest about who their children really are. And then once we get to that point, I know if my son made a mistake or he did something in school, I'm not going to go there and just get on the teacher and say, no, that's not my child. I know what he do. And no. I'm going to go there. I'm going to listen to both sides. I'm going to listen to his side. And after listening to his side, either one of them, all 3 of them, after listening to their side for a few minutes, I can tell whether or not they did or didn't do what they were accused of. So the hardest thing to teach parents is to be honest about who your children really are.
That's a good one. Each week I say on the show, because the guest always says something. I always say this, that my grandfather, he used to always tell me in Plymouth, North Carolina, he said, when I used to go visit, he said, boy, come over here for a second. I got a nugget for you. And I'll be like, a nugget? I mean, he's literally going to give me something. I mean, and then he would say something to me, and I would go like, okay, where's the nugget? But he was saying something. It meant that he was saying, he was giving me something that was important. And you just said something that was very important. I mean, Damon Lillard and the Kevin Love in the commercial, dropping dimes. You just dropped a dime. My grandfather dropped nuggets, right? That what you just said was very, very important, because as an executive director of the Boys and Girls Club, and even before then, as a little kid growing up, right? Parents used to come in when we made mistakes. A lot of parents used to come in and say, that's not my child. My child will never do that, but yet, their child was, you don't know what your child is doing outside of your 4 walls. Right. And so exactly. You have to be, you have to be aware. So that was perfect. Got another question for you. And remember, if you're out there in the audience and you want to send in a question, right, I have one more question for you. Come on, you can send it, just type it in, we'll get it. We'll try to answer all the questions that come across. So here's another one. What was one of the toughest lessons you had to teach your son, and how did you teach it?
One of the toughest lessons I had to teach my son, and how did I teach it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would say I would have to go to helping him build his self-confidence. And the way that was taught was oftentimes I had to take him to out and let him play with the older boys, just so that he can realize that, hey, okay, I belong out here. I tried it initially by some military way of thinking, and that just didn't work. But when I actually had a chance to, and this was like in his middle school days, that's one of the last things I can really remember. Just help him build his self-confidence, because often when our children don't have confidence in their abilities, they sell themselves short. And one thing that I told him was that, no, son, you can do whatever you want to do. Only thing you have to do is apply yourself. I'm going to support you in every way possible. But if you apply yourself, I'm there to support you. That's my job. That's my role. That's who I am. That's what you're going to know me as from here moving forward. You may not always agree with me, but I'm here to support you. And so, taking him out to the park and letting him play with some older kids just to help him build up his confidence, that's something to this day he still remembers. And so that's one of the things that I had to teach him, how to build his self-esteem and realize who he is. Realize his last name is Scott, and hey, ain't no stopping.
Right. Great. Well, I got another question for you, man. Man, he's dropping some nuggets and dimes here tonight.
I see them popping up.
Let's see. I got a few more questions here. It says, did you have to teach your daughter differently than your sons? If so, how?
The answer to that, yes, definitely, definitely. See, she wasn't motivated by the same ways that I had to motivate them. Oftentimes, if she just know I'm there in her presence, then she's good. Even to this day, just knowing that I'm there to support her, she's good to go because she know that ain't gonna let nothing happen to her. Now the other two, I may let them, fall off the bike a couple times before they realize, okay, you got to keep pedaling. You got to keep pedaling. But she know I ain't gonna let her fall. I ain't gonna let her skin up the knees, elbows, or nothing of the such. So as a result, I'm right there. I don't care if she take off and start blazing down the sidewalk. I'm running behind her to make sure that at no point in time when she get ready to stop, she forget what she's supposed to do. Stop, put the brakes on, and then put your feet down. Because I don't want her to fall. So she knows that. And yes, I had to teach her differently. Sorry about that. Sorry, fellas, my sons, if you're watching. But, Dad love you too.
That's right. Yeah, we do. Hey, I have two boys and two girls. My girls are older and my boys are younger. So, yeah, there is a difference. When my daughters was talking about going to college, I was like, man, there's a limit in which you could go, right? Where you could go, right? And but my sons, you want to go to California? You're welcome to go to California. My oldest son did go to college in California, But the girls, I was so protective of them, man. And we do treat our daughters differently. I think we have another question here. Let me see that question. Pop that question back up again. It says, what guidance would you give to a single parent who works 10 hours a day? What programs work with the parents and kids to help them a sports skills training without costing a fortune?
Okay, and I'm going to say to that question. I'm going to start out by saying, then I'm going to answer the question. The same guidance I gave you up until now. That's one of my friends there, and we've been close for a number of years. I've helped her out. She has a phenomenal son that plays baseball, and the young man is doing some great things. But what guidance would I give a parents? I would say, hey, again, stay humble. You have to learn how to be your child's biggest advocate. That's the first and foremost thing. I know that those 10-hour days, maybe you have to struggle sometime, but at the same time, at the end of the day, if that child is involved in something, we have to make sure that we're there to support them. It's a tough road to travel, but we all have to continue to travel that road because, our children didn't ask for to be in this situation. It's a situation that they were brought into just based upon us, and we have to be there to support them. And as far as skills training, that's important. That's important. You can run out here and sign up for 101 different club teams and all that kind of stuff. But if they're not doing any skill development, or your child, nowadays you can look on social media and find all types of skill development packages. But, for the most part, you want to make sure that you're finding somebody that's capable of teaching your child the right things to do. And if they're not really in it for the overall picture of the child, if they're in it for themselves, or they're in it for another check in the block, then that's not the right person to work with your child. And I suggest you move on. If they're in it for some exorbitant price that they're trying to charge you, again, that may not be the right person to work with your child. See, a person that really wants to teach, and this is something I picked up from the Marine Corps. If I'm really interested in teaching, I'm in it for being able to share my knowledge. It's not that you have to pay me. If you want to pay me, hey, that's all well, fine, and dandy. We can go with that. But the overall picture for me is to be able to share my knowledge with that next generation. So it's not about a financial thing for me. And if it's about a financial thing for whoever's training your child, that may not be the right fit. I understand we all have to eat, but again, if it's within his or her heart, God's going to make a way.
Yeah, true. And yeah, I can say a couple of things on that as well. If you can find organizations, because I grew up in the Boys and Girls Club. I learned to play basketball in the Boys and Girls Club, and my mom paid little to nothing other than the membership, and she put in her time to do fundraising for the club when she had an opportunity to do so. And we got wonderful training, wonderful mentorship, wonderful coaching. And if you can find a YMCA, right? If you can find a Boys and Girls Club that has these types of programs in it already, that probably would help you as well. And like Mike said, if you can find an individual who's had some experience in this that you can trust with your child, and they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart, you may choose to give them something, right? Or they may be wanting to give back something that they have experienced, give it back so they could pass it on. If you can find an individual like that, that would be a blessing to you as well. So yeah, definitely. So let us, so talk to me a little bit about, Mike. I was watching him the other day at the game. He's up there with one of the young men that I have a lot of, I admire a lot. His sister played with my daughter AAU when they were younger, and he was a little kid playing with my sons in the corner shooting basketballs for fun. Tobias Harris, and
Nice. I figured that's who you was talking about.
Yeah, just a great young man, just a wonderful young man, and so they're kind of similar in their basketball style and playing, and they work well together, each knowing their role. So talk to me a little bit about Mike and his development, and then we're going to jump into right after this, we're going to jump right into your book and some things for parents.
Okay. Well, Mike is a child that if someone would have asked me 25 years ago, did I think that my son is going to be able to play in the NBA? I probably would have to say, I don't know. I will push him towards getting his college degree, and once he got his degree, and if he decides to do something else moving forward, then hey, I'll be there to support it. Mm-hmm. He's a very interesting child, and as we look at him today, And if you had up that first picture, that first picture that you popped up when it was the three of us, my two boys, and I think I had on a green shirt. I love that. Yeah, that picture right there. I love that picture because that's post tattoo, Mike.
Right.
I look at that picture and say, that's post tattoo, Mike. You can never replace that picture and that look and that guy right there. You can never replace him ever. Because he's the kind of kid that he'll make you laugh just by things he do. And I recall when he was little, probably about that age, or maybe a couple years earlier. You know, he'd be laying down and sleeping and whatever, and if he's watching, he may get upset about this, but he'll be all right. It'll be something he'll laugh at later on in life, or be able to tell his son. But next thing you know, I turn around, I look up, and he's standing at my door. I'm like, what's wrong, son? Oh, damn, my legs hurt. Oh, your legs hurt? You know, I'm like, okay, well, what's wrong with your legs? Did you run too much today? Or, you know, and I'm talking about, we're talking about a 7 or 8 year old, but he'll say his legs hurt. And what it is that he just didn't want to stay in his room. So he would come up with this, my legs hurt thing every other night just to come in my room, just to hang out until he fall asleep. Then I'll pick him up and take him, put him back in his bed, and hopefully he'll stay there the rest of the night. But that first few times, I didn't catch on to it. I'm thinking, something's wrong with my child's legs. Do I have to set up a doctor's appointment? What's going on here? Because this was like every other night. I would say he got me on that for close to about 2 years with my legs hurting. My legs hurting, you know. And then I'm like, okay, all right, well, make sure you stretch. Get, drink plenty of water during the day, eat you some bananas and all these other little things. I'm trying to tell him, come to find out wasn't nothing wrong with that joker's legs in the first place. And it was just something that he wanted to do just to get into my room so he can lay down. I don't know if it was he didn't want to be in his room because it was too dark or what was going on, but he played that game on me for close to 2 years. And I fell for it. There's something else about him. He went through that growth spurt like most folks do. And he went through one that he went from 5'10" to about 6'5", close to 6'6" in about a 2-year time period. So the best part about all that was I was really and truly glad that, at the time the kids had their pants sagging just a little bit because I couldn't keep up. I'm going to tell you, I couldn't keep up. And if them pants wasn't sagging, then they would have been all up around his calf somewhere because every time I would buy a pair, a week or two later, next thing you know, they riding up on his ankles. And it was crazy. Along with that, trying to keep up with his shoe size, oh, man, that had me going for a long time. At the age of 10, he was wearing 10s. So by the time he hit 11, his shoe size and his age matched all the way up until about 14, 15 years old, about 14 years old. Then finally it tapered off a little bit. And then I guess it picked up again once he got to college because I think now he's in about a 16 or a 17. But all the way up until about 14, that shoe size and that age was a match, And I had a hard time finding them. It wasn't easy just to go out to the store and pick up a pair of 14s, not a pair that the kids going to wear today, because everybody they want the Nike, they want the Jordans, they want the foam posits, they want this, they want that. Okay, all right, I'll get you a pair. You better make them jokers last, brother. You better make them last. So that's one thing about him, and that's how we just kept it going. But one thing that even during his high school days, I would always tell him, if I got there before the game started, I would just yell out as they coming out, being announced or being introduced or whatever. I just yell out, have fun. I wouldn't say who I was talking to. I would just yell out, have fun. And he knew I was talking to him. You know,
Right.
I didn't want him to go out there and just grind himself. Go out there and have fun, son. If you're having fun, then you're going to play better. Because the simple fact, and one thing that I realized, if you're having fun, you're going to put your all into it. If you're not having fun, then you're going to hold back. You're going to be a little reserved. But if it's something that you enjoy, oh, man, we're going to get 110, 150% of it. And you ain't going to want to stop because you're having fun. So that stayed with us all the way up until his college days. And if I can catch him coming out, early on and I'm close enough to the floor, or if I'm close enough where my voice will carry, which most of the time it does anyway, I yell out there and have fun. And he know that, hey, all right, Dad done made it to the gym. All right, here we go. And that's what we did. And that's just something that we stuck with. And I stick with that, even to today, because it's all about him enjoying himself. I say, hey, when you stop having fun, maybe that's time to, hang the shoes up. Figure out something else you want to do.
Yeah, that's very important. I mean, I always tell young people that I'm training, no fear, right? Faith, right? And when you say play with fun, right, you kind of void that whole mindset of fear, because you really enjoying what you're doing and thinking about messing up. Right, you're just thinking I'm out here just enjoying the game. So there's another nugget, right? There's another nugget, another dime he just dropped, right? and I think that Michael Jordan said it. If I had to teach a kid, I would teach him to have fun first, right? And of course, once you enjoy what you're doing, right, it never really seems like work after that. Right. And that's very, very powerful. So that's a very powerful statement. And talk to me a little bit before we jump into the book and start talking to parents and as we close the show. Talk to me about the foundation, the Mike Scott Foundation, and some of the things that he's doing in the foundation with you.
Oh, we've done a number of things over the years. Starting out with his camp, he was doing a post COVID and the pandemic. He was doing a free camp for the kids here in the area, where we were bringing in anywhere from 150 to 200 kids for a one-day basketball camp. And he would come out and, we get a number of coaches and other folks that he may know that come in to join and just for a free camp. Last year, during the time of the COVID, wasn't able to do the camp. So as a result, he did a back to school giveaway and ended up giving away a number of tablets and laptops and all kinds of school supplies to the different kids in the community. On top of that, with some of the stuff that I'm doing along with the foundation, the foundation supporting it, we do a STEM sports club. I do it at the school where I work at, and where we do STEM sports, where we help kids just understand the integration between science, technology, engineering, and math and sports, and making sure that, and Math Hoops is one of those programs that we brought into the fold of our STEM sports club. But just making sure that they understand the value of, hey, everything that you do, if you're talking about sports, you can relate some of that to either science, technology, engineering, or math. So it's just an added piece that we put in there as far as just something else to give back to the kids. Again, everything that we do is free, open to the public. If you live in one particular city, but you want to become a part of it, we don't hold anything back. It's all about the kids at the end of the day. That's all he is. He's a big kid at heart anyway.
That's great, man. And so let's jump right into this parents, coaching parents and network and how it came about, and also your book. And let's jump right into this whole thing about the preparation for student athletes. Why you start, talk to me a little bit about that.
Okay, well, I'll start out with the Parents Coaching Parents Network. Mike had an opportunity to go to the Players Association Top 100 camp years back in 2005. You had Purvis Short and you had George Johnson and Tim McCormick out there running it at the time. And they had a parent component at the camp. And actually, their parent component is actually called Parents Coaching Parents. There's no network on it. It's just Parents Coaching Parents. And I said, wow, this sounds like a good concept. So I went up to the camp at the time, stayed up there with Mike for those 3 days, and became a part of the parent program. And they taught some things. And I said, well, I wonder if this same concept could be tweaked just a little bit and brought back to the local area. And some of this information being shared with, parents in the community. Of course, all the parents are not, or all the children are not, your top 100 kids or your high profile kids or your elite athletes or your blue chippers or whatever you want to call them. No, but all of them, if they get that same bit of information, the basic requirements, then they'll be better off when they get to the point of doing the college recruiting aspects. So I started with that. I started putting together some information. Mike was being recruited by Temple University at the time. I threw that ideal at the legendary Coach Chaney, and he said, hey, that sounds like a great idea. He connected me with somebody in the Philly area at the time, and I connected with the guy. He gave me a call. We sat down to talk. He said, hey, I'm going to put a package in the mail where I do workshops and seminars and college conferences, all this stuff for the athletes here in the Philly area. And I said, okay, sounds great. So I get the information, I read it over, I start tweaking it and redesigning it for my prospective area. And then I start sharing it with the parents here in the area, not realizing that many of them didn't know. They didn't know how to help their children get through the recruiting process. I had a parent that when I first talked to her about the eligibility center, she said, what? I said, the eligibility center, is your son registered for registered with the eligibility center? And she had no clue, no idea. She went back home. She asked her husband, talked to her husband about it. He said, no. He said, what do we need to do? So then I started helping them. And actually during that time period, it was during the football season. Their son played football, and they were already into the season. So he didn't, get a chance to really be seen or viewed by anybody until they came to watch that season. There was no other additional information out there about him, but he was still able to get into school that following second semester after he had graduated. So he didn't go back to school, start college like everybody else in August. He had to wait until the January, February timeframe, that second semester, and they brought him in then. But, it was so many different things that did not happen, and it should have happened. Another dad, I sat down, we met at the library one day, and we worked one-on-one just getting his son registered. And it was those missing pieces that pushed me to say, okay, this Parents Coaching Parents Network thing is valuable. It has some teeth to it, something that folks really and truly need to hear, they need to be aware of. And that's why I came out with the little slogan, and I picked it up from somewhere, heard it somewhere, and it stuck with me. Help us help you. And as a result, hey, that's what we're doing. We're all about helping that next generation of parents get to where they need to be. That took me into the book. And when I say it took me into the book, it made me realize that we don't know what we don't know. But if nobody's providing this information to us, we still won't know. So that's why I came up with, you don't know what you don't know, the Sports Parents Guide. And this information that I put in the book is just based upon, hey, parents, these are some of the things that's out there that you may not be aware of. If you are aware of them, then hey, you're ahead of the game. But if you're not aware of them, here's some little short tips that's going to help you out a little bit. And I talk about just being a sports parent, or just being that positive parent, or just being that buffer, that person that's going to be your child's biggest advocate. You know, I say to parents oftentimes when I have a chance to speak, I say, realistically, when we're talking about this here college recruiting process, or talking about your child just being involved in sport, you have to be your child's very first agent. Because if you're not, then somebody else will come along, and they definitely will be, especially if your child has some potential or some talent.
Yeah, that's very powerful. And I think it's important that this tool, right, because it is a tool, a guide is a tool that can be used, in places like YMCAs, Boys and Girls Clubs. Definitely it should be a part of every basketball camp. Somebody's hosting a basketball camp. As a former player and been involved in of course, many basketball camps, even you know this, that many of the camps just focus on playing the game, whether it's baseball, doing the drills, and it's baseball, football, basketball, hockey, whatever it is, it just focuses on the sport. It doesn't focus on the student. And I think this is very important, that there is a guide, right? There is a blueprint, right, that parents can use to help them when they see that their child has potential, and so you, along with the book, you have the network, you got the podcast, right? You had the radio station, right? So you got all these things, being able to, to get to parents and talk to many different. So talk a little bit about, the network and the other things that you got going on in regards to the parents, coaching parents.
Okay. Like I was saying earlier, I had a chance to attend the Players Association's camp. And from there, an idea sparked in my head. I said, okay, every year there is approximately, 40 to 60 parents that show up at the Players Association camp. I said, now, and I talked to maybe an old friend of yours, George Johnson, Big George.
Yeah, that Big George.
And I talked to George. Yeah. And I talked to George, and I said, George, I said, just imagine if each one of these parents got the basic NCAA requirements and went back to their respective cities and just started, a little parents group, just sharing their information, what they learned with the next group of parents. The whole situation would just fall in place. It wouldn't be folks be struggling. It wouldn't be kids being misguided. It wouldn't be parents being taken advantage of. All these violations and all these other things, rule infractions and all this other kind of would just go by the wayside, because that guidance would be put in place. I think what really was the tipping point for me to say that, hey, this really and truly needs to happen was during the time that Mike was going through the recruiting process. Mm-hmm. And when he was going through the recruiting process, I reached out to an administrator at his school, at his high school. And I said, hey, I don't know nothing about this college recruiting. I have no clue. I don't even know where to start. Somebody help me. And so he said, well, what I'll do, Mr. Scott, he said, I'll sit down. I'll make an appointment with you. And at the time, it was the NCAA coordinator. And we'll sit down here in my office, and he'll give you everything you need. And so I said, okay. So I met with him that night. And, I went up there while Mike was having practice. We were sitting in the office, and, we were going through all these different things. And something hit me then and said, okay, why did I have to ask for this information? Why wasn't this information just disseminated to all the parents, regardless? You have your varsity, your JV parents, for every sport. You got a fall season, you got a spring season. You brought them in the auditorium, have somebody give out this information, and now you have, because at the school that Mike graduated from, they had so many young men come out of that school to go on and play. Well, Mike, I think, is the only one that has went on to play professional basketball. Mm-hmm. But you have a number of them that came out and played football. D'Angelo Hall, Daryl Tapp, James Anderson. Who else? Man, it's about 5 or 6 of them that came out and went on and played football, professional football, and had decent careers. But they wasn't providing that information. I forgot the name because during the time period that Mike was a senior. Now, mind you that the administrator said, hey, everybody's not going to have a chance to go to the same level of college and play at the same level that your son's going to play at. And I was like, okay, well, that's not for you to make that decision, but they still need the information. Now, during his senior year in high school, on his basketball team, you had 6 Division I players, Division I athletes on that team. 6 bona fide Division I athletes on that team. But I was the only one that they sat down with and gave the NCAA brief to. So where was the other people getting their information? I was sharing what I learned and was continuing to learn with everybody else. Some of them had some clues and had other folks guiding them, but for the most part, they didn't know what they didn't know, and this information wasn't being shared. So that added more value to the Parents Coaching Parents Network, and something that has to happen, something that has to continue. You had everybody from a young man named Andre Dawkins who ended up going to Duke, all the way through to a classmate of Mike graduating from the University of Virginia, a young man by the name of Razai Dowling, who ended up getting drafted 32nd for the New England Patriots back in 2011, I think it was. You had 6 division. You had Corey Law, who is now with the Harlem Globetrotters, a young man by the name of Thunder. You can look him up. He's still with the Globetrotters today. So it was 6 Division I athletes on that team, but I was the only one that got the presentation. And I thought that was a travesty, and that was an insult to not just the kids, because nobody thought that they were going to go anywhere, but to the parents as well, because you didn't have enough confidence, enough faith, and enough, realizing that these kids have potential. You watching them play, you watching them on the football field, you seeing when they play a game, they pack in the gym. So evidently something must be going right. So right. As a result, I continue with the Parents Network and just continue to put the information out there.
Well, we definitely thank you for that. And I remember both my brother and I, my wife and I, we had daughters and sons that played AAU basketball. And some of the tournaments that we actually went to, they talked about the clearinghouse. Are you in the clearinghouse? And they would go through a process before the tournament started, and signing people up for the clearinghouse and different things like that. But many student athletes don't get that information. I just seen a number of individuals that posted at the bottom here. I think Danielle talked about PCP, how you helped, right? In many ways, right? And then there was another person that just posted that you help with the importance of understanding the importance of GPA and SAT and ACT scores and eligibility requirements. So I want to say thank you for that, because we still are missing that. There's such a small percentage of people who know. You said it earlier, right? You were one, right? You were one, and then there were 6 others who weren't getting that information. And a lot of times our schools don't provide information. And so a lot of times, parents have to get involved. They can't just leave it up to the AAU coach to be in control of your child, or that the high school coach could be just in control of your child, right? You need to be engaged as parents in the life of a student athlete, because it's just, the decisions are just too important, for you not to know and not to be engaged. And the information is out there, right? Your book is out there, right? The Parents, Coach, and Parent Network. Go ahead.
And I actually talk about that in the book. We have to realize something. We're talking about the future of our children. So do you really think that a 16, 17, 18-year-old child is going to be able to match wits with a 30, 40, 50-year-old grown man, professional salesman, coach, that child is going to automatically respect because of his position, especially if the child's trying to get into that school? So that coach basically can say anything, and that child's going to be in awe. I talk about this often when I talk to parents. We was on a recruiting visit, and we was walking on the campus, and I was walking in the front with 2 of the assistant coaches. Behind me was Mike and the head coach. And so the assistant coaches, they were just steady talking to try to keep my attention. But I'm trying to listen to see what the head coach is talking to Mike about. They walking behind me. So, I wasn't worried about no social distancing back then. So as a result, I'm trying to hear what's going on back there, because that conversation is going to be, how are you going to connect with my child? Because what happens in a lot of cases, coaches will do everything else but talk the real facts with your child. As I was, and like I tell parents all the time, I was ear hustling, as the kids would say. I was ear hustling. My conversation was back there on Mike's shoulder, and I was trying to hear what the coach was talking about. The coach was talking about DVDs. He was talking about what kind of new rims he want to get for his truck. He was talking about when the next set of Jordans come out. He was talking about the next iPhone or flip phone or Razor or whatever other kind of phone that was out there. He was talking about everything else but academics, playing time, conditioning, bed checks, study hall, tutoring, all the things that I was trying to hear about. And he was talking about everything else but that. And so when we got in the car, I said, son, what you and the coach talking about? Now, I done heard most of the conversation. He said, well, yeah, he told me about this. He told me. And so I asked him, I said, well, did y'all talk about tutoring? I said, do y'all have an advisor that travels with you when you doing a couple road games or whatever? Do y'all have mandatory study hall? He said, I don't know. I'll talk with him, when I talk to him later on. I said, okay, all right, enough said. But those are things I want to hear about. But see, parents, we have to be in tune with that kind of stuff. Because, just as well as I know, you and I, we can start talking to a young man. First of all, if he find what we saying creditable, if we got some kind of creds, in his language, if we got street creds, you come in being a former NBA player, I'm having a son that's playing in the league. Okay, we got some kind of street creds in their mind. So whatever we're saying, they're eating it up. They think it's a Hostess Twinkies. They on a roll with it, because of the fact that they think that what we have to say is valuable. Now we could be selling them, some Bernie Madoff stuff. Hopefully we're not, but we could be. And as a result, the sad part about it, they'll gravitate towards it. They'll fall for it. But see, that's where we as parents can step in and be the buffer. We as parents can step in and say, okay, break some of that down. And then later on have a chance to talk to your child and help them get a better understanding of what they're dealing with.
Right. That's good, man. Good advice. And we got about maybe about 5 minutes left here in the show. And yeah, I mean, these are all nuggets, dimes that you are dropping. I think it's so important. And I hope that if you are a parent out there and you see your son or your daughter and you say, man, wow, I'd love for my, son or daughter to seem to have some athletic potential, right? Two important things. Number one is classroom development, because I have a picture, at home. One has the books and the other one has the ball, right? You can't have one without the other, right? You got to have the books in order to play the ball, right? Or hit the puck or whatever. You got to have that first. And so, what, again, give me something, some advice to, in our last few minutes. What advice would you give a student athlete in regards to, if they're listening, about their future and development as a student athlete?
Well, and I heard you say that term a couple times a night, and I like to realistically stay away from that term, student athlete. And I can give you a whole nother hour just on those two words by itself. But I'm going to say it real short. Some advice to an athlete is everybody's not a Division I player, and don't just make the Division I your only target. Be realistic about who you are and from whence you came. Realizing that if you look at a team roster and you don't see yourself on that team roster as a 5'10" point guard, then maybe that's not the team for you. And that's real talk, because of the simple fact that it shows that coach is only recruiting a certain prototype. If all his guards is 6'2" and above, 5'10" is not 6'2". So find another place. It's not, you don't always have to fit into a Division I program. The difference between a Division I athlete and a Division III athlete most of the time is size. Does Division III stop you from going on to move on to be bigger, do bigger and better things in the professional ranks? No, because there's a number of players that have went on and done great things coming from Division III and NAIA schools.
Yeah, that's important. When I'm talking to players and trying to give some guidance or some coaching, I always say, look, hey, a couple of things. Find 3 schools that you like in Division 3, 2, 1, right? Because the most important thing is, to get the scholarship, to get a free education if you can. If you have the talent. So look at 3 schools in each one of them, right? And I always say that you should live where you're going. I always ask a kid, what does a freshman in college doing now, right? What are they experiencing now that you're not experiencing, right? And then live it now, right? So if study halls, whatever the workouts are, whatever preparation that they had to do in order to be a freshman in college, those are the things that you need to be doing now. You need to be a college student now, right? You need to be disciplined enough to be reading and writing and doing all the things that a person does in college. So when you get to college, you have accelerated, right? Or accelerated into your next level. So, yeah, I think. All right, talk to me about real quick, because we got a few more seconds here. I think you put that up there. I like that, man.
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
that's how you get the book. How do you get your book?
That's how you get the book. You can email me at that email address. Oh, your book is already in the mail, sir. I'm surprised you don't already have it.
Well, I'm not
Your
in New
book went in
York.
the mail a couple of days ago.
I'm not in Mount Vernon, but I get back there tomorrow.
Gotcha. Okay.
And then you make sure you send my address.
And the book is also on Amazon.
Okay, so that's how you get the
book is also up on Amazon.
It's on Amazon too. So
yes,
Mike
sir.
Scott's is on Amazon, and then I think you see down there, you see his email address right there. That's how you can get the book as well, right? And so, Mike, man, I want to thank you for coming on, man. I enjoyed you, man, and we may have to do this again, man, and do something that where we can get some parents, have some kind of conference or training that we can bring parents in and get them to get this knowledge out, man, and get that book out so they can have the proper guidance, right, for elementary school, middle school, high school. A parent should know, right? It's never too early to start.
That's it,
right? Again, thank you, man. I appreciate you coming on and taking time out your busy schedule, man. Let's stay in touch, man. I look forward to continuing our yes, sir. And so thank you.
We're gonna have to go to the network.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's do it. I'll be in touch. So again, thank you for your support of this week's show, man. Love you guys. God bless you. Look forward to next week. Next week we have Donovan Mitchell, who's a member of the Mets staff, and we have Roy Smith, former pitcher of the Cleveland Indians, and he's a scout for the Mets. We're going to talk baseball next week, right? From some very intelligent individuals on the game of baseball. Hey, see the shirt I got on? See these colors? When I was a little kid, I was a Met, a big Met fan. Willie Mays and Tom Seaver, Bud Harrelson. So I'm looking forward to talking baseball next week. And I'm even going to show you guys one of my pictures when I play baseball. It's in black and white, but I couldn't make it color, so it's just going to be in black and white. God bless you. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to you to seeing you guys next week. God bless you.
We really hope you enjoyed this episode of Lowe's More, the BluePrint podcast. Stay connected and follow us at our website, www.lowesmore.com. That's LOWESMOORE.com. You can also join the discussion on Twitter at Lowe's More and on Facebook at Lowe's More Jr. As always, thank you for pushing your mindset towards a better reality. This concludes the most thought-provoking portion of your day. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast to stay fully up to date with everything we're up to. Until next time, be kind to yourself and each other.
What they teaching is a joke. I ain't buying it like I'm broke. Insufficient funds for insignificant time.
Hey, Los.
Hey, Carmine. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Great show as always.
Thanks, man. Appreciate
a lot
you.
of information on that one. That was really good. There was a lot of information for parents on what to do. I really like that a lot because I totally agree. In high school, they could 100% inform you more on before you go to college. So.
Well, yeah, many of them have what they call a specialized counselor. That just address sports. Many of the counselors don't know anything about being a student athlete. What their next stages are. Usually, it comes from the coach. I think.
Yeah, 100%.
Are we still on?
No,